Hello, and welcome to CDO Magazine Interview Series. I am Michael Schwarz with Resultant. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Owen Tak, who leads business intelligence and data management. Hi, Owen.
Hi, Michael. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to spend some time with you today and looking forward to our conversation. One of the things that we talked about is you recently posted that the CDO, or Chief Data Officer, and the CAO, or Chief Analytics Officer, titles are likely to become outdated in the near future. What kind of changes do you think that'll cause in organizations? Will there be disruption? What's your take on the title changes?
Sure. The role of Chief Data Officer or Analytics Officers were really created in like early 2000. And the idea was to transform data into measurable business outcomes. Now, the main role of CDO is to help companies achieve their visions through capturing value from data. CDOs, talking to a lot of CDOs and CAOs, they're coming out from a very technical background. So their main area of expertise is that they're innovative and they're problem solvers, that you need kind of a holistic view into business, and they need to be well integrated into business to be able to add that business value. Now, as I mentioned, most of the current CDOs and CAOs come from a technical background, and I see that those are changing, those are evolving towards more leadership skills first, more communication skills first, rather than coming from a technical background and managing to be able to manage the teams that are very technical under them. Obviously, a little bit of technicality is required for them to understand what's happening within the teams, but their main role is going to evolve into more leadership style. Yeah, and that's the change. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So from a historical perspective, those that maybe were a little more technical and the traditional type of roles, where do you think that they'll end up fitting within an organization?
Well, I see that these roles, the CDOs and CAOs, because they're moving from a technical to a non-technical role and more of a business-focused role, there's going to be a lot of overlap between them. And at some point, we'll see the distinction between the two kind of disappear, and they become the data and analytics leaders within organizations. That's where I see these two roles kind of evolving into one, and then becoming part of that C-level executives that is going to again focus on leadership and adding business value to the business, well integrated into business.
That's right. Where do you think, when you think about the newer functional responsibilities for these roles, where do you think that we can help organizations start to recruit from, or what kind of backgrounds are you thinking of in some of these roles, when we have some of the leadership being elevated as data and analytics becomes elevated, and we move to more of a leadership across technical teams? Where we find these gems of resources and the talent to build that up?
They really could come from a variety of backgrounds. We've seen the newer CDOs coming sometimes from a political science background, and they're heavily focused on statistics, on math, and that's where we're seeing. And that, as I said, the main skills that are required in these roles are going to be required. There's that leadership, communication. So we might see a lot of C-level executives changing position from other roles into the data roles, not necessarily having the background. So it really could come from any background.
Yeah, that's good. I like some of those suggestions based on the way that maybe their mind works, or academically how they have thought about moving change and just understanding what's going on in different parts of an organization. So can you briefly describe how you think data and analytics officers really can influence change in an organization, even if they're not necessarily the decision makers? So they're at the leadership level, they're providing insights, they're moving the organization forward? How do they support and influence decision makers in the best way?
That's a good question for sure. I would say the only way to deliver to influence change is to deliver business value. At the end of the day, we're all responsible to the CFOs, and a lot of times we're asking, "What's the value of data? How does it go on the balance sheet?" And that's the end goal. So getting business value out of everything that we're doing, it's crucial, and that's the key that we shouldn't forget. At the beginning of this journey, data is seen as a byproduct, was seen as a byproduct, but now everybody's talking about data as an asset. So, like any asset within the organization, people are assets within the organization, and they're managed. We have different, depending on your organization or which industry you're in, you are managing your assets, and data has to be seen as an asset to kind of be managed. It's only through quick wins and proving that the value of the data that we can move the data roles, and we can move the analytics roles within the focus of the business. And it's not an easy task. It's a very complicated task. But when we see that the data executives are invited to the executive meetings to provide insights, and they're actually seen as part of the C-level executive, rather than let's only invite the data guys when we need them. That's when we see the change in this culture has taken place, and data is in the focus. Another point that I would say is that communication is the key. Keeping the business executives informed and creating that engagement with them, it helps change the culture, and it helps bring the data in center as well. It is also crucial to engage with all the stakeholders, not just at the executive level, because those are the people that become your champions at the end of the day.
That's right. And even in there with some of those relationships with the business side, I mean, you just learn more about the business and understand, how to communicate with some of those other areas, which that two-way communication back and forth is so important.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes these we are a good example that sometimes we're seen as a service provider for the whole organization, but then those communication channels are not necessarily open. So, we as the data leaders trying with the executives to find some way that we are not involved in every part of the business, not just, can you create this dashboard for me, or I need this data, or I need this when it comes to data and analytics, but also having those constants to know exactly what's happening within the business, to know exactly what are the initiatives, what are the targets, what are the projects that we're currently working on, because a lot of times these initiatives are not well defined, and we have to go into these meetings with the exploratory mindset to figure out, okay, where can we help to improve any of these processes or procedures that we have, and how can we add business value through predictive, prescriptive, descriptive analytics. And those are all exploratory. They're not well defined, and there's the different teams and different departments don't have them well defined, so they can't. I think it was Einstein who said, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I would spend 50 minutes defining the problem. It's that definition of the problem without knowing the capabilities of data and analytics. It's very hard for other business units to develop, and that's where we need to be involved in kind of day-to-day business.
Owen, thank you for joining me today.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And as always, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.